Sure. So we are recording this session. I just want to let everyone know, so we could share this wonderful content with other students that are unable to join us.
Well, you
So
might not want to share it. So, I mean,
we'll see. Yeah, it remains to be seen. We'll evaluate after the conversation. But no, it's fine. All right. All right. Let's see. All right. Yeah. Let's get this going. All right, everyone. Good evening. I'm Sandro Tejada, Director of Major Gifts and the Seton Hall Parents Program. Thank you for joining our virtual offering this evening, How I Got Here, discussion with Seton Hall parent Todd Gibson. This session, again, is being recorded. So please just kindly mute yourself. You know the deal. And if you have any questions during this session, which we hope you do, please use the raise your hand icon on the top right of your screen, and also use the chat feature to share any questions you might have, or you could hold your questions until our Q&A session. In our new speaker series, How I Got Here, Seton Hall University has tapped our wonderful parent community to share their career journeys with our students. The series introduces students to accomplished professionals across a variety of fields. This new initiative provides, hopefully, an opportunity for Seton Hall students like yourselves to get a unique firsthand perspectives about the careers enjoyed by some of our talented parents and also alumni. The idea is to empower you with a window into what potential pathways exist for you after Seton Hall. I know you're all thinking about that, so hopefully we could help you get a better picture of what's in store for your future. So again, I'm honored to have the privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Todd Gibson. Todd is the executive chairman at Element Petroleum. And thank you again, Todd, for joining us this evening. And the virtual floor is yours.
well, thank you, Sandro. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Um, like I said, I didn't do a PowerPoint presentation. I thought I'd just kind of throw out a little bit about what I do and how I got here, and then I'm at the end. I'm willing to answer any question anybody has. Um, I began my career path was definitely not a straight line, as a lot of people's aren't. Most people, when they go to college, they think I'm going to do this. I'm going in this direction. Definitely not my path. I actually changed majors, I think, 3 times in my undergraduate studies. And then I've never actually worked in my undergraduate study field. I did my undergraduate studies at the University of Kansas and Emporia State University in Kansas. I ended up with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science with a minor in history, which was very different from the pre-med that I started going to college with. And when I left college, graduated, uh, I was literally a little bit burnt out. So I spent 6 months backpacking up and down the Rockies trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I ended up working in the oil and gas industry, which political science has nothing to do with oil and gas. And I worked as what they called a petroleum landman. My job was to go negotiate leases with landowners and acquire the rights to develop minerals, whether they be oil, gas, or other minerals, on people's land. And I loved it. I had a blast. Then the price of oil crashed, and there was no work, and I decided to go to law school. And then I went to law school at Texas Tech University, graduated cum laude, and then I practiced law for about 10 years. I worked as a briefing attorney and law clerk on a court of appeals. Then I was a prosecutor. Then I opened my own office, my own law office. And then starting around 2001, 2002, the price of oil started climbing back up. And a lot of the people I met, 10 years earlier were starting new companies. And so I started helping them form companies. Not all oil and gas. Some of it was wind energy. Some of it was solar, but mostly oil and gas. And I eventually sold my law practice and then started my own company and moved back to West Texas. And I was working as general counsel for a startup oil and gas company. And that startup oil and gas company had invested about $144 million in capital investments. And then the financial crisis of 2008 hit. And at the end of that, they only had $30 million worth of assets after spending $144 million. So the investors thought, and rightfully so at the time, that they needed to liquidate, and they decided they wanted an attorney at the helm to liquidate, to try to get as much of their $144 million back as they could. And they asked me to run the company, which is, I never, ever thought I'd run an oil and gas company. That was not in my game plan. That was not on my 5 or 10 year plan. But it was an opportunity, and I took it. And over the course of a few months, we were able to secure secondary financing, and then we were able to salvage the investment and not just get them their $144 million back. We eventually were able to develop the properties and sell them and return $527 million to the investors. So instead of going into straight liquidation and bankruptcy, because we had a lot of good people that were working with us, we were able to turn it around and actually return, 3.8 times to the investors what they had originally invested. And then based on that, not on my career plan, not on my career path, they approached me to start a second company, and so I did. And that was also an oil and gas company. We developed horizontal wells in the Permian Basin of West Texas. Our investors, we invested $36 million in that company. And we're eventually able to monetize it and sell those assets for about $448 million. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I surrounded myself with really good people who were really smart. And the most important thing is, and the hardest thing for me, was I learned to listen. And that's really hard for a lot of people. Everybody loves to hear themselves talk. Everybody loves to hear their own opinions. But the most important thing in business is learning not just it's learning to be quiet and listen, and not just who to listen to. It's listen to what everybody is saying, and because everybody has a little bit of truth in what they're doing. And that was one of the greatest skills I learned. And so that was over the course. In my teenage years, I had an uncle that was in the oil and gas business, and I watched him fly on private jets. Then I watched him go broke. And I said as early as the mid 80s, I'd never be in the oil and gas business, but here I am, right? But I look back on the course of my career, and we raised $180 million from various sources, being equity funds, banks, sovereign debt, also, a number of different investment sources. But out of that $180 million that we raised, we returned $975 million to those people. So it's been a great ride. It's been fun. It was not what I planned to do, but it's where I'm at, and I love it. But from being a political science and history major to law school to this, it definitely wasn't a straight line. It wasn't, and I definitely didn't end up. I went to college, and I thought I was going to go to med school, and I was pre-med. I didn't end up there. So I don't know. That's my story. That's where I'm at, and I'm willing to answer any questions anybody has.
Well, thank you, Todd, for sharing your career path. I mean, from being a political science major to going to law school to now being the executive chairman of a pretty good sized oil industry company. That's an amazing path. Yeah, we could open it up to questions for our students. What I would like to do, since we have, a small class today, maybe if everyone could introduce themselves, what's your major, and then if you have a question, feel free to ask Todd anything. Gennaro, would you like to start? Everyone's a little shy, I guess.
I'll start if to break the ice over here.
Sure.
So my name's Nick Natoli. I am a junior at Seton Hall. I transferred from the University of Scranton, and I am a marketing major and a communications minor.
Awesome.
Really, I'm just astounded by what you said more than anything, more than I have questions. Meaning, I would say, how did you do it? Like, what type of lawyer did you become? Like, what sort of cases do you deal with? Like, after going to, you went through the law school to this oil company. Now, what was your value? Like why were you an asset to them?
That's a good question. As a lawyer, over the course of several years, I handled many types of cases, right? I did criminal law. I did murder trials. I was a prosecutor. I handled civil appeals when I was at the Court of Appeals. Everything from divorces, oil and gas law. I mean, just you name it, I did it, right? But I guess my asset as a lawyer that tapped them to ask me to run an oil and gas company that was failing was that for the 3 years prior, I had set up and several oil and gas companies for people that I knew. And then also prior to going to law school, I had worked in the oil and gas industry, so I knew the business, right? So it wasn't that I was a specialist. It was just that I had a unique set of experiences that fit what they needed at the time,
Right.
when they thought their business was going to go bankrupt and was going to have to be liquidated. And I'm very fortunate that I was there when that particular door opened and that particular opportunity presented itself. And I just happened to have a broad range of experiences, and some of them ticked the very boxes they needed at that time. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that very much helps. It's almost it's a culmination of a lot of things. You can't really answer the question with one straight answer.
Yeah, it really is. I can't say there was one particular thing. It's just a confluence of a bunch of different factors that just all happen to to work. You know, they say it's better to be lucky than good sometimes. And I just happened to have what they needed at the time it was needed.
Yeah, I like that motto.
Well, thank you, Nicholas, for introducing yourself and sharing your question with Todd. We have a raised hand from Miguel Mendez Perulias. Hopefully, I pronounced your name correctly.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Ah, good.
Well, hello, Mr. Gibson. My name is Miguel Mendez. I'm an accounting and finance major, and I'm a first-year student. My question is, how do you raise so much money from investors? I mean, I assume it wasn't all equity. There was some debt into it. How did you convince financial institutions to
Well,
also?
the dollar amounts, the 180 million that I mentioned, that was all private equity. And
Okay.
it was raised through private equity firms on the East Coast, the largest being ArcLight Capital Partners in Boston. ArcLight Capital Partners used to be the John Hancock Equity Fund for Energy. When John Hancock shut down its private equity energy fund in 2001, the head partners in that, they never even left their office in the John Hancock building. We're still on the 55th floor of the Hancock building in downtown Boston. They started ArcLight Capital Partners. So they're actually the ones that brought me in to this enterprise. And so we deployed a lot more capital than the $180 million I mentioned. The $180 million was from ArcLight Capital Partners and a few other equity partners. We did use standard debt, reserve-based loans, and they were facilities that were led by BMO, the Bank of Montreal. And then we also had partners or subsidiary banks in those facilities, including Amity Bank and the West Texas National Bank, which is a small regional bank. But so in those numbers I was talking about before, I wasn't including debt. But when I included what we returned to our partners, that was after we paid off the debt that we raised from Bank of Montreal, et cetera. But yeah, ArcLight Capital Partners, venture capital firm. They're in the same building in Boston as Bain Capital and several others, and John Hancock. Great place in Copley Square if you ever get to go. But that's where the capital came from. Outside of myself and a few friends and some people in Houston that put some minority shares in, the vast majority came out of there.
How was the negotiation with the private equity firms? Did they want to like for further financing and services?
Which time? They were a lot tougher on the first company than they were when they asked me to start the second one. It went a lot easier when we started the second company because at that point we had a proven track record. We have salvaged a company that they had written off. That first company that they hired me to run, out of their $144 million, they were hoping to get 30 million back, and we ended up returning 527 million. So negotiating with them on the second company was a lot easier.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Miguel, for the question. Now I see Sophie Weaver has a question. Please introduce yourself, Sophie.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sophie. I'm a communications major. And my question to you was, when they asked you to run a failing business, were you eager at the opportunity, or was it something you had to wrestle with a lot? Because most people wouldn't be like, yes, let me run this failing company, you know?
I really did have to wrestle with it. I mean, I lost several nights sleep over it, deciding, do I really want to do this? I mean, this is a company that's dead in the water. Is there any upside for me there? And so what ended up happening, I went back to them and they'd already offered me just a salary, right? And the salary was good. So there was that. But I went back to them and said, okay, well, if I can get you half your money back, I want a percentage of the proceeds. So they said they never believed they'd get half their money back. And so they did. Well, that created an upside for me and an incentive outside the salary. And once they agreed that I could have a percentage of everything they got that was over 50% of their investment, I was very motivated to make that company work if there was any way possible. And thank you for your question. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Anyone else has a question for Todd? I see Christina has she had her hands raised. Miguel, you have another question? Oh, Christina, you're back.
Yes, I have my hand raised. I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. No, that's
Yes.
all right.
My name is Christina Sabia. I'm currently a sophomore in Seton Hall, and I'm a public relations major. And I kind of just had more of a general question. I don't remember if you said if you had an internship or not in college, but I guess now that I'm kind of looking toward internships for the summer and the school year, I was wondering, like, in your opinion, do you think they are necessary in college? I mean, it's kind of hard just to tackle like taking 6 classes and then also an internship. Like, what do you think about like getting one in college? Because I know some people that don't even get one until after college. So I just want to hear like your opinion.
I'm sorry I'm moving. There's some construction going on, but I did not have, well, I did have one internship in college, and that was a March of Dimes internship working in a pediatric trauma unit when I thought I wanted to be a doctor. And that's where I learned that I did not have the emotional stamina to work with sick people and dying people. And so that internship was important to me because my career path changed. And so it's not necessarily the answer to your question. But what I would say is being a CEO and a chairman of a company, internships have been valuable for young people to get a feel for what that industry does or that particular job does, and then also to make connections even before they graduate. And there are a lot of people that have worked as interns at my company that either we've hired or we've helped them find a placement elsewhere. So I think if you can get an internship, if you can spend a summer interning somewhere in a field that you're interested in, that's an awesome thing. And if you can do it, I'd do it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Christina. Looks like we have a second question from Miguel.
Hey, Miguel.
Hey, Mr. Gibson, now you said that you surrounded yourself with, I guess, the correct people and very intelligent people. How did you go about creating, let's say, the dream team to bring this company from the ground up? I mean, 2 times.
Well, okay, so, right, I'm a poli-sci major and a lawyer, and we're drilling 10,000 foot deep oil wells, right? I'm not an engineer. I'm not a geologist. I'm not an accountant. So I had to go find engineers, geologists, accountants, and a whole host of other support people that get involved in that. I mean, because some of these wells would cost $10 million a piece to drill. And I did not have the expertise or the education to do it. So I had to go find people that knew what they were doing and find people, that I could trust. And that's what I did. And it wasn't easy. I mean, heck, it took me 18 months to find the engineer that I finally landed on to run operations. Luckily I had some geologists that were friends of mine, and I knew some geologists, so I was able to find that pretty quick. And then accounting was beyond me. I had no accounting education degree. High finance, banking, I didn't know what I was doing. I had to learn really fast and then find, a CFO that had a good background but good education. And some of it was trial and error. There were a couple of people that didn't work out, but the vast majority did. It was just being careful about really careful about who I selected to join the team. And the thing you never think about, you look on a resume and you can see all these qualifications, all this experience, but then you have to consider, will they work well with the rest of the team? You don't want to end up with a personality conflict once you bring a vital person onto the team. So had a few of those, learned a few lessons, so it wasn't easy. I knew what my shortcomings were and what skill sets I didn't have, and I had to go find people to fill those. I hope that answers your question, Miguel.
Yeah, it does. Do you mind if I ask how you ended up finding the engineer?
Yeah. So one of my partners was a geologist. And in 1981, he worked with an engineer at a company, and they were both right out of college. And they were good friends. And so that partner's name was Jamie Small. The engineer's name was Stephen Eric Hopper. And they both started at a company called Marshall R. Young, which doesn't exist anymore. Jamie told me about Eric Hopper, and I liked what I heard, and I went and started trying to recruit Eric Hopper. Well, Eric Hopper was working as an engineer for a publicly traded company that was in the S&P 500, and here I am running a company that everybody knows is on the verge of bankruptcy. So he wasn't very eager to leave that S&P 500 company and come to work for us. So I spent 18 months recruiting him. Between the time I was able to hire him in the beginning, I used contract engineers that I was having to pay 150% over market rate because they were just contract. They weren't employees. And it took me 18 months to convince Eric to join us and become our vice president of operations. And now he's currently a equal partner in our third company. So it's worked out well for him. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
All right, thank you. I
You're
felt
welcome,
there was a story behind it. That's why I wanted to ask.
Miguel, great investigative reporting there. Well, Todd, I have a question for you. I mean, we've heard your story. I mean, I think your answer in regards to internships, right? Sometimes these internships gives you an opportunity to learn maybe this is not the field for you, and that's something that you learned, that the health and medical field might not be the thing that you want to continue. And these are things that you're going to be, right, during your career, you had to make decisions that you felt that was the best for you. Like you mentioned that you also sold your law practice, right, 10 years into it. So, I mean, those decisions that you have to make during your career, those are tough decisions that you have to make. Also even taking over a business that was failing. What do you feel was probably your best career decision that you've made, and probably still something that you hopefully will be making in the near future? But just looking back, and what do you think was the best one that you've made since graduating law school?
The best one I made was the scariest. So after I turned that first company around, and they asked me to form a new company and start a second oil and gas company. I'd done all right, but I didn't have a lot of money, and they wanted me to have skin in the game. And I bet it all. I bet everything I owned. And, so during the second company, I had to come home and not bring it up with my wife, that, hey, if this doesn't work out, we're broke. So luckily for me, I made 100 times on my investment, but I could as very well as easily have lost it if the timing had been wrong, if things hadn't worked out the way it had. So that was the hardest decision I ever made, was taking risk and betting everything I owned, everything I had. Because I had 2 kids, a house, a wife, and if it hadn't worked out, I would have had a hard time going home at night. So I hope that answers your question, Sandra.
Of course, yeah, definitely. That was definitely a brave decision you made, and but you bet it on yourself. So
well, and the people around me. I always give credit to the people around me, because I couldn't have done it on my own, ever.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we've been, I think, instilling in our students, especially becoming servant leaders. But you can't do this alone. And I think one of the things I talk to students is the power of networking, the relationships that you form, especially in college, right? You might meet your wife, future wife, or your best friend, but also during your career, which is so important. And it sounds like for you, relationships that you have, that you've known or you've created, was so important during your career path. Is there someone that you can share with us that was kind of a mentor, someone that helped you during your career path that really helped you because of that relationship?
Well, I have to say that I've had a lot of mentors along the way, both in college, in law school, working in the oil and gas industry, and in the banking industry. There's not one particular mentor, but at each step along the way, there has always been somebody that was more experienced than I was, that I have found that I could lean on and ask them questions. So, finding a mentor or mentors, I think it's important, because you can always learn from someone else's experiences. Why have to relearn a lesson that someone else has already learned if they can share it with you? And I've been fortunate all along the way, and I can't if I called out one, then I'd be remiss for not calling out the other 10. There have been a lot of people along the way that have helped me.
Thank you, Todd. I think one of the other things that I know for us, as especially during this pandemic and working from home, it's definitely been easier to have this kind of work-life balance, because it all has kind of meshed as one. But what kind of just advice can you provide to students, especially those that are going to go into their careers, and how do you find work-life balance, and how important that is in raising a family, but also, raising capital for your company, which takes a lot of work, but making sure that you have that type of balance just to be.
Well, yeah, I'm much better at the work-life balance now than I used to be. I mean,
Right.
Come on, you're calling me and I'm in the Florida Keys right now, right? I'm not at the office in Texas. I struggled with that early on. I mean, I was burning 100-hour weeks and taking the office home with me. And that was a mistake. Not the hard work, but um, learning not to take the office home was very important. You got to shut it off and make time for your family, for your church, for whatever social organizations and other stuff and hobbies. So that was a tough lesson for me, Sandro, learning how to balance work and life. And I don't think it was until I was in my late 40s that I started getting it better. Um, in my 20s and 30s, I was burning the candle at both ends. And that's all right, but I wasn't making enough time for the important things in life. And that's really important. If you can get that balance, manage your time, and make time for yourself and for your family, for your church, for hobbies, anything. If you can do that early, you're a lot better off. I would have been better off if I had to learn those lessons in my 20s.
Well, thank you, Todd, for that answer. I know we have another question from Miguel. Go ahead, Miguel.
Well, let me just preface by saying that your career path and your story, your career path and your story, I mean, they're amazing and they're very, very inspiring. My question, another question is, how do you compensate your employees or the key people? For example, you're talking about that engineer that you try to recruit for 18 months. At the, once he finished working for you and during, he was working for you, how did you compensate the key people?
Okay, well, that's a very fair question. And I'm going to preface this with every time I talked to somebody about going to work for me, I would tell them I was backed by a private equity company. And I would say, this could be a 6-month gig, or this could be a 10-year gig. I'm not making any promises, right? So there would be the normal short-term compensation, which would be salary, bonuses, 401k, right? That's whatever, health insurance, that kind of thing. But then I would layer on top what I used to call the LTIP, a long-term incentive program. You stick with me, you're already going to have a salary that's commensurate with anybody in the industry. You're going to get benefits that are as good or better than anywhere else you can get in the industry. But if you stay with me and we actually make a profit, I'm going to give you a share of those profits. And that was what I called the LTIP, long-term incentive program. So if they stayed and we made money, they got a percentage of that money. So Miguel, in the industry, some of the executives, we call it S-tip and L-tip, short-term incentive program, long-term incentive program. But with a private equity-backed company that everybody knows is either going to go public or sell at some point, that L-tip can be very important. It's not a guarantee, but it's an incentive.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have about 4 more minutes left in the presentation. Todd, I would like to ask you, especially with our wonderful students that are in attendance, who will be going into a pretty tough job market. Hopefully it improves in the next couple of years, but especially if they are sitting in front of you and you're interviewing them. I mean, what is something that you look for in a resume or even during the interview process that will probably help them remain competitive, during that process? Is there any advice you can share, any tips that you could provide them that would help them?
All I can do is tell you what I would look for, and I'm different than any other hiring person out there. I want people to look me in the eye. I want people to answered the questions I asked them directly. I don't like puffery. And what I mean by puffery is when somebody tries to overstate their qualifications. But I like people that are proud of what they've done and without overstating it, right? So, and then I like people who can show me their drive and explain to me why they want that position. And I want people who can explain to me how I would benefit by hiring them with without making stuff up or going too far, right? So, I mean, I know that's not great. I'm not a good HR guy, Sandro, but that's the best advice I can give.
No, that's great advice. I think definitely, I think the first one that you mentioned, looking someone in their eyes. I mean, that's that first impression that people, that you can make, that you're attentive and you're serious about what you're doing, and you're, like you mentioned, I think earlier, one of the best skills that you've learned is listening, and I think also listening, but looking at someone in their eyes gives you that that feeling that you are listening, and which is so important. And it's been a joy for us to listen to you and your career path, which has been incredible. And I'm so thankful that you were able to share your time with us today. And
Thanks for inviting me.
You're
And
welcome.
it's kind of boring, but
No, not at all.
All got something out of it.
No, this is great. I think, this might be just part one of maybe a series that we could have with you, because I think there's so much more that we could extract from your career that would be helpful to all our students who are, again, they're all trying to figure out, as you heard, they're different majors. As you said, you start
an internship. Don't
yeah.
do an internship. I mean, yeah, I've been there. And like I said, I changed majors several times. So
yeah,
I get it.
And I think the other part of it, which I try to, talk to our students, is that you need to reach out and build your network. So if there's an opportunity for any of our students to maybe connect with you on LinkedIn, and maybe they can continue this conversation with you offline, if that's okay with you, I could share your LinkedIn profile.
If they'd like to, share my profile, and I'll connect with them.
That'd be great. That's always, that's a good way to start, their connection and their relationship with you. So any way they can connect, that'd be great.
All right. Well, thank you, Sandro.
Thank you. Enjoy that good
Miguel,
weather. Go out fishing.
I forgot the others' names, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, Christina, Kellyanne, Miguel, Nicholas, and Sophie.
Oh, Sophie. Okay. Thank y'all all. I enjoyed it.
Great.
And next time, Sandro.
Next time. Take care. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.